minds, Chaos FFT here. I'm sure you've been waiting forever on an updated version of this. Hopefully this time I properly educate you all without relying on a book or misinformation. And to help me along the way, today with me I have a friend of mine, Fluffy Turbo, who also studies Wicca. She doesn't practice the same branch as I do, but we both can give you the rundown.
We will only teach you the basics, since if we covered every corner of this, we would be here forever.
Exactly. With that said, let us fill your open minds with learning.
In 1954, a man by the name of Gerald Gardner has finished publishing an iconic classic, The Book of Shadows, along with the first ever mention of the modern take of the craft, Wicca. Gerald has done plenty of things in those years, from assisting the newly made Forest Coven, to forming a group and performing a ritual that prevented the Germans from crushing into the UK during World War II. Wicca is a form of witchcraft. The origins from it branches from the practices such as Dianic, Celtic, Forest, Fairy, Alexandrian, Frost, and so on. Behind the name Wicca and Wiccan is self-explanatory, as Wicca refers to witch in Old English. During one of Gerald's interview about the intentions of Wicca and his branch of witchcraft, he talked about how Wicca is about peace, content, and joy. However, he does look down upon the ideas of using one's powers in the name of greed. Instead of treating magic like it is a toy, it should be treated like a companionship, and to give it all the respect it deserves. His expectations of Wicca, to bring it back to his idea of peace, content, and joy, is to bring together a community, a place where everyone can get along with no issues.
Gerald was also a nudist.
Excuse me?
Yeah, that's where the whole dancing around naked stereotype came from.
Oh God.
Don't worry. He isn't forcing anybody to be a nudist. In fact, it allows people to express so many ways to be Wiccan. Illustration magic, talismans, necromancy, even weed magic. Anything that has a legitimate practice is allowed to be used in Wicca. But there's a catch.
And what's that?
Wicca has only one basic rule. It's not required, but it's suggested. Though it does have quite the impact on people who do not heed its warning. And it harm none. Do as you will.
Oh yeah, the do whatever the fuck you want, but unless it harms another living being, it'll come back at you 3 or 10-fold rule.
Exactly. But covens or groups are allowed to add their own rules. Even Wiccan and witches who, no pun intended, fly solo, they can set their own rules.
Sweet.
And that's not all. You're allowed to have different beliefs. Like, for example, you believe Wicca is religion, and I see it as a practice. Your craft is herbalism, while mine is demonology. See? No beef.
How dare you not have the same beliefs? You're not a real witch unless you follow my beliefs 100%. Believe. Yeah, don't be a Gruntilda, folks.
Never edit her in again.
Sorry.
Now, let's look into the holidays!
Holidays can be really anything. You could set your own or celebrate some that are based on your belief of the craft. Though Wicca does bring up some holidays that can be celebrated. Please put down your pitchforks and forgive my pronunciation. Imbolc, Ostara, Beltane, Litha, Luke Nalsat, Mabon, Samhain, and Yule. Each holiday tends to vary on date, time, and sometimes are completely different due to the hemisphere. But this is the one I was taught due to the fact that I'm from the Northern Hemisphere. Up on the screen right now is the differences between the Northern and Southern Hemisphere dates, just so you Aussies don't.
Once again, these are only suggestions. You are not forced to celebrate them.
You can celebrate other holidays too, like Christmas, Easter, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Cinco de Mayo, anything!
Just don't go overboard and calling us someone at the Christmas party, alright? Alright.
Aw, but that's my favorite part. Now, on to the recommendations for beginners. If you want to learn more about the craft or specific practices, it differs from person to person. Jesus is the bread. I would recommend grimoire.org, a site full of historical grimoires and spells. Though, be careful as some of the spells can be dangerous, so use common sense when reading them. Another recommendation is Top 15 Ancient Books of Wisdom and Power, a video by Tat's Top 10s. The video has a list of some very good books that look into historical magic. Reading historical texts on magic not only makes sure most of the information is genuine, but also teaches you the history of magic itself.
As for me, I would recommend Wicca Practical Magic, getting started with magical herbs, oils, and crystals. And Wicca Starter Kit, Wicca for Beginners, Finding Your Path, Living a Magical Life. I have read a good portion of these. They're pretty helpful for starters, but not for the best results. I would recommend that you look for a mentor or a group of people with experiences in Wicca. Hellbound Heathen is a good example, but be warned, you might find some people who are going to roll their eyes at you. Some people just don't have the patience to train others.
To sum it up short and sweet, don't be in your face about your beliefs. If people ask, unless you live in a country that has strict religious laws, tell them and explain your beliefs. There is no reason to keep things hidden if you are not under the threat of legal persecution.
Some people, of course, might have religion or media stigmas lead their judgments about you. This can even become a legal matter. So if you have fears of being disowned by your family, friends, or even the community, and especially authority figures, it's best to be in the broom closet. The broom closet is similar to the other closet, the LGBT closet, where instead of hiding the fact that you're gay, you're hiding your practice of witchcraft. Having your practice in the public eye can be dangerous. If you research anything online, use an anonymous nickname that cannot be tied back to you. And be sure to use incognito mode or just refresh your search history if you live with those types of people. People will judge you for your practice, and it can be very scary to be in the broom closet, but sometimes it's the best thing you could do for your own safety. Until you find a community to practice your craft safely, the broom closet may just be your best friend. As for physical, there are some covens out there that keep anonymity to those who are in the broom closet. Though, for safety's sake, do not just go into any random coven. Do your research on them first, and build a slow trust with the other members. If you are a minor, do not join a coven until you're older. If you have friends or family who are interested in Wicca, then you can create your own little occult research club on your own. That's completely fine, and that too can become a coven one day. Joining covens with strangers is a no-go. Wait until you're 18. A lot of the times, their practices can be pretty intense, and if you're a minor joining a coven that, whoops, deals with sex or sexual contact, leave immediately. That practice is not for you yet. You're still a bitty bean.
Now, we also have to take into account the dangers of people within the craft themselves. You see, bindings and curses can happen, even from fake and spiteful witches. Bluff or not, it's best to set up some protections for yourself, so that any curses coming your way bounce back at them.
Depending on your practice, look into what they have for protection. You see on the screen right now is, I'm gonna butcher that name, Phyllis Corte. I will link to you her video so you may take some notes on the basic protection spells she uses. Time to lose brain cells!
Witches and Wiccas sacrifice human babies and animals.
Wait, you don't do that?
What?
I'm kidding!
Clearly we don't do any of that stuff. Where have you heard in the news about witches killing babies? Well, except for the 700s Club. There is no reliable source to prove in their stories that the events actually happened. Sadly, there are some practices that do harm animals and children. Some of them, like necromancy and witch doctors in certain countries. Both having practices that revolve around killing animals and possibly sacrificing humans. But let me just tell you right now, these practices are actually not a part of Wicca. It's not even in the list of branches. If there's any involvement of harming animals or hurting human beings for any type of spell or ritual, it's highly frowned upon in Wicca and the vocal majority of witchcraft. So when you see a crazy witch who's getting out of hand with whatever they're doing, bone snatching in Louisiana, you'll see a bunch of comments about people who study the craft shunning people like this.
More weight. Witches are evil and run the media with subliminal evil messages.
Yeah, sure. I can control big news stations and turn your kids into Satanists through clips of big lying. Totally a clear message if I say so myself.
Subliminal satanic messages hold just as much water as the Red Cup Starbucks outrage. There's far more propaganda against Wicca than there is for it. Have you seen Fox News? Besides, why would they take the time out of their busy schedule to talk positively about the craft? Their hands are already full.
Now I will tell the news to cover how Halloween is turning the kids gay with rainbow candy.
So many colors. I feel the need to make love with a shrub.
Wicca is a satanic cult filled with devil worshippers.
Translation: Wicca is an adversary towards my sky daddy. Any anything can be a cult. There are even books that cover the signs of a cult. As for devil worshippers, nah. Each Wiccan can discover who they may worship. There are even some instances where a Christian can still be Christian and study witchcraft. There are even agnostic people who don't have a deity who could be a part of the craft. Even atheists can, but that doesn't mean that atheists are Wiccans. However, devil worshippers are like off-brand soda. They're a whole different can of worms to crack open.
They're just edgelords. Simple and sweet.
There are even innocent people who get called devil worshippers just for being curious or studying the occult for, well, learning. As of late, crazies are even using the word devil worshippers to anyone they just don't like.
With that logic, King James is a devil worshipper for studying the occult.
Or exorcists, since they need to study demons in order to vanquish them.
Hi.
Atheists are Wiccan and pagans.
This one I got firsthand by a lovely user. Accused me of being the mastermind behind a church shooting incident in Texas, where they claimed that the was an atheist, which somehow tied to paganism, then claimed that since atheists are pagans, that Junkie and I were somehow involved with the
I lost half my brain cells just listening to that.
This stereotype is not used often. I've only seen it by crazies who wear tinfoil hats on their tinfoil hats. Or a troll.
The Wiccas control the government.
And so do lizard people.
It says in the Bible, let not a witch to live.
All I know is that the Bible is filled with tales about old morals where people were allowed to have multiple wives and enslave. Seriously, read the full verse and understand that it's a rough translation of a rough translation. No one knows what that actually means, so don't act like you do.
Let's not forget Mary was the ripe age of 13 when she got pregnant. Look out, God. Chris Hansen wants to have a seat with you.
I had this one bad experience with this one witch, therefore all Wiccans are bad.
I get it that you may have encountered a bad witch in your life, but it's best not to generalize that bad experience with all witches and Wiccans. Not all witches do curses. Not all witches act like Miss Know-It-Alls. Not all witches hate Christians. Not all witches are butt ugly. I'm looking at you, Fluff.
Hey!
I, on the other hand, might not be the best example of that, but you get what I mean.
If you generalize our community as bad, then we could say the same for everyone else's.
This can apply to just about anything, so you might want to cut back on the it's all or nothing attitude.
Baphomet is Satan.
The Baphomet has more in common with the Tao, or the yin-yang symbol, than it does with Satan. As above, so below, the duality of light and dark. It's not a demon, and if anything pagan, it's a representation of the horned god.
As mentioned before in the other video, Pan has a big wiener, so be careful on Googling him if you're still a bitty bean.
Ah, the blessings of being an adult looking at a deity's genitals with no judgment whatsoever. So that's all covered. Now what?
You get out of my house.
Wait, what?
Avada Kedavra! And there you have it. That's just like the very, very rough basics, like, yeah, so if you guys want any more information about the basics, I'll provide the links of all the previous stuff I've shown in the description below.
The pledgers that helped make this video possible are as follows.
Starting with the Lewd tier,
Billy DS1234, Claire Dranix, Cole Martis Routine, Guest 24, Hickory, Noah Slex, Rosie, the 401 Collective, the Dark Frost Wiccan, Worm, and Giraffe Jackson.
Next comes the Wendigo tier, Medusa's Hex, Mongrel, and Wolfie.
Next is the Sprites. Carmen Ryder, Fluffy Turbo, Felix, Petal, Rachel T, The Daybreak System, Twiki Fox, and Zimby Brook. And the last, the Wisps. D&D Dork 444 and Annabelle Fazakimi.
So I hope this was enough to at least help you guys understand Wicca a little better, so that way if you're interested, do what you need to do.
This is Chaos55T, and blessed be.
My hip.
My leg!
Now we're just turning into Link.